we are live.
Back at it again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So let's go ahead and just hop right into it. And apologize because we did some recording already for this episode. However, it did not get recorded properly because your guy is learning. So it was a fire episode. We're gonna kind of run it back just a little bit, bring some new takes, bring some new topics since we've last met. But if you all haven't figured out, we are here with Devin Jackson in house. He's out visiting us here in LA, and I appreciate that. So we're slowly bringing the group together. Soon you'll see Brett, and soon we'll have more formalized studio space because this is my work desk. So,
but it looks good. Like, I look so professional, man.
It's not bad. It's not bad. It'll do the job for right now. I think
it's super clean. Like this right here. Like you would, if they just This is in the middle of his room. If you didn't know, that's why it may sound like this is. But it's smooth. It's very, very smooth. Like the setup, the look, the feel. It's very clean. But Today we're gonna be talking about Atomic Habits by James Clear. A book that Jake put us on to read over the past week. And one that we feel like is really, really helpful for people who are kind of in the thick of their grind, focused on the growth aspect of where they are. And that's really leaning into how to create better habits that lead to a better life overall. We learned, man, there was a lot of good takeaways, bro.
Yeah, man. And I think that's the big goal. How do we develop strong habits to persist and achieve the goals we set for ourselves, and not just kind of be those one tagline goals that are really ambiguous or grandiose. I mean, even we could start there. Is that one of the biggest things he talks about is going, from zero, instead of going to 0 to 100, he more or less refers to as like, okay, well, make it 0 to 1 and then 0 to 5 and 0 to 10. And he makes this claim by proposing this idea where it's called bundling or stacking of habits. And I really like this because this is something that I chime with a lot of, like, if it's not in my routine, I'm gonna forget to do it.
Yeah. Like,
to be real, like for me, bro, I let cleaning slack sometimes.
I couldn't
tell.
Okay.
Okay. I be moving through my day, and sometimes I don't be doing as much of my due diligence to clean my crib as I should. However, I think what I'm going to do is apply the same kind of information I took from this book, where he talks about coupling habits, right? So, or how to take on new habits. And this idea is that you couple habits with strong associations you already have. So if every morning you wake up at the same time, you go grab your coffee, whatever that morning routine is as of now, and you build upon that. And the whole bundle stacking part of it is that you create a relationship with doing things right after each other. So, from coffee, I create I grab my oatmeal and my breakfast. From there, I go to my desk and check. First thing I check is my email. So whatever that's a stack, or that's a bundle for right there. And so one of the things I really enjoyed was like, okay, well, all I really got to do is add to my stack, right? And if I really want to get into it, it's like, okay, instead of getting out of bed and my first thing is coffee, well, let's go ahead and make that first thing, making my bed, right?
It's also, I think,
something simple as that.
It's just as simple as that, but I think you touched on it and you brushed over it. It's also very much aligning your relationship with it to one that matches your identity, right? So like our relationship, like for instance, my relationship with making my bed in the morning is not. It's not as strong as it could be. You know what I mean? Put it that way. So I'm like, I align with that heavy because when I wake up, I just normally like kind of get started with my day. But I've also noticed that kind of like in the vein of having like a clean room or just like a clean space, having like something as simple as like your bed made as you're starting the day is like a really good way to kind of start it. There was a YouTube video of this individual who led, I believe, like a couple SEAL teams. He was like the
are you
commander.
talking about the guy who was talking at the commencement?
Yes.
The
Yes.
graduation thing? Yeah.
And he was saying like, yo, start your day off with making your bed.
Yeah.
And he was like, at the very, it's a great habit to create because what it does is it starts your day off accomplishing one thing, right? You basically taking that first step, 0 to 1, right? And then 1 to 2 from there. Just like you were saying, that lines very, very well up.
Yeah, and I use this example of the bed first because I'm not good at that, dude. Like, I'm not. Like, I'm gonna say it. Like, I'm not. I don't get up. That's not the first thing I think about. The first thing I think about, honestly, is like, okay, the sun's still not up. Let me try to get these shorts on and get to the gym so I can squeeze in enough time where I don't have to stress about time. Which seems to be a common theme as I move through my day. Is like, I need to be so rigid in my day so I can feel like I have enough time. You know what I mean?
So you kind of create more time through efficiency.
And that, and so he brings that up in the book of like, he says that it's like it's a fallacy to say that, you know, by having a routine, by having habit, he says that.
Some people believe that it eliminates your ability to be creative.
Yeah, and
almost
that whole
it actually enables you.
spontaneous nature of like it. You can't jump to whatever you want to do. This is life. It's supposed to be unpredictable. It's supposed to be spontaneous. And he makes a claim, an argument that says it's kind of bullshit. Really, the reality is by creating those habits, those routines, and making your life efficient in the ways that you see fit, that you almost have more freedom and more claim over your time and your life and what you can do.
Definitely.
So,
and I think that one that like a example that aligns with that really well for me is kind of like the way we meal prep or the way we like get meal prep, right? So for me personally, every Sunday is like my day to meal prep for the week, right? That's the day that I clean the house, the day I like meal prep for the whole week, create 2 different meals so that I can kind of interchange those throughout the week. And then I kind of get ready, look at emails, kind of go over charts for the entire week, getting ready, right? Set up. And it's kind of like also for me, the best time I'm able to kind of plan things out, but it's because I have that one day that I can meal prep, right? That's super helpful, because that me being rigid in that habit of every single Sunday, no matter what, it's a me day. It definitely frees up the rest of the week, so it gives me something less to think about, you know. So every night I'm like, I don't worry about, oh, you know what? I am kind of feeling like eating some El Pollo Loco, which is fire, by the way. It is smacks, bro. You just hating, G. I'm just saying, hey, man, you can ask
talk
Drake.
about a fast food,
bro.
like,
let me tell you, El Pollo Loco goes. All right, and
we digress. But
yeah. Anyways, what, like, instead of me like going back and forth with myself and eating out, which I love eating out, but I'm just like, you know what? Nah, I'm just gonna eat this food. All I do is warm it up. I don't think twice about it. And normally I'm eating it right after a workout, so it makes it seamless, and it frees up time to like kind of just focus on, okay, what do I do next? You know, what's the next step after this? Is it I'm studying charts right now? Am I kind of looking at different cryptos? Are we reading a book?
Let me pull you back on something that you said earlier that kind of piqued my interest. I was like, okay, you say that you commit every Sunday to this, and it's kind of become a routine for you. How long did that take to become a habit?
I don't think it took long. For me, it was just, I think it like took maybe after like a month, right? Maybe a month, because I remember specifically when I started doing that. I wasn't doing that before, and I would find myself trying to make time to cook throughout the week, and it became so much of a stress that I was eating out more than I should have, and I needed to kind of be more rigid in it. So I don't know, it took like a month and a half of like going back and forth on like cooking on Sundays and then cooking throughout the week. That was like, you know what, if I just cook these 2 different kind of meals on this one day throughout the week, I can just eat it throughout the whole week and I'm not thinking about it. And then after that, it became a thing. And it also kind of became part of, like The Rock would say, like my anchor for the week.
See, okay, so I asked that because for me, one of the things I think about that as a habit I developed was, you know, I'm up now consistently at like 4 a.m. every day. And that was something like when I tell you that wasn't normal for me for a very long time, like my family got truancy letters because I was showing up so late to school when I was a kid, right? So like my mom would be like, get out of bed. She'd even like be like smacking me with like a sandal or something like that, and I'd just be like sleeping right through it,
Dead
right?
sleep, like
Dead
a bear.
sleep.
Okay.
And so I reference this just to say that, like, you know, something clicked for me when I moved out here that I was like, okay, one, I can't stand LA traffic. Okay.
That's a pretty.
That
big
was
factor.
one of the biggest motivators for why I want to be up so early, so I can move when nobody else is moving.
I love that. That's very real.
And it's not even a byproduct. It's like, it's not like some internal talk where it's like, I'm working when my competition's not working. And I was like, no.
Fuck that.
That's not what it is.
I just don't want to deal with these people.
I need a solid 2 to 3 hours of my day alone before I give my entire self to whatever anybody's asking of me, from whether it be my job, my family, my friends, like how I can best serve people. And so I started practicing waking up, and I wanted to talk about this, of how long it takes to develop a habit, because there were two sets for me. The first one was a terrible attempt. It was terrible. I was like, there's this guy talking at 3 a.m. Let me wake up at 3 a.m. and you start listening, and then I can wake up through that. And he has these like nice morning motivational talks. I don't know why I'm tiptoeing around his name. It's Eric Thomas. He does he does TGIM every Monday at 3 a.m.
I had no idea. That's crazy.
Yeah. So all to say, he does these talks on Monday, and I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to get into my routine. This is how I'm going to set me up for my Mondays, just to listen in. Going to be up, listen to something positive, and it didn't work at all. I would wake up Monday 3 a.m. next 2 days wouldn't make it. Somehow make it on like a Thursday, Friday. Yeah, right. Okay. And I was realizing, like, okay, well, the anchor that I was using to, I guess stack this habit off of was like this guy's talk, and I was like, it seems a little external. There's not much internal.
It's not strong enough.
Right. Yeah. So whatever that anchor is that pulls you into this habit needs to be a strong enough relationship so you can persist with it. And I found that, okay, that wasn't going to be the anchor for me. What ended up being the anchor was, to preface, then I fell off of that for like a month and a half. It's like, okay, this is not working. Ultimately what happened was I spent so much of my day in front of people, or people requesting things from me. And I'm just like, and my gym time is the only time of my day where I get to be alone and not pay attention to anything. And we've referenced this, but my anchor became my gym time. And my gym time, I anchored for the morning because nobody's in the gym. Nobody's up. Nobody's driving. And so my anchor was that time slot in the morning where it's a crack of dawn. The best time to be alone is that time. And now, bro, it's like clockwork. I don't even think about it. Like, even on these weekends, I'm like waking up at like 5, 6 a.m. Like I was like, what time is it right now?
Dude, yeah, I completely understand that.
And it feels natural, and it feels great. Like, it really feels good, man. And I don't know. I wanted to see how long it took for you, because for me it was one bold attempt that didn't work out. Another month and a half or so of just like waking up regular, and then now it ultimately coming up on month 3 or 4. I'm locked in. Like it's a habit now. I
mean, but so for me, the habit that I had to create in terms of eating, or not just eating, but like creating my meals on Sunday, fell on the heels of almost 9 months of being at home on lockdown during the midst of the pandemic, where I was literally just not like, I would wake up at whatever time we would eat. This is when I was in a relationship, so I was like, we would meal prep kind of, but then like we're also not working out as much, so it put me in a place where it wasn't as rigid. That habit wasn't there. And so coming off the heels of that and being in a place where I was not healthy, I was not happy, I wasn't as focused as I could be. It was almost the motivation it was there. So creating it wasn't as it wasn't as challenging as I thought it would have been, right? And it was only just, I mean, it was just in my mind, I was like, dude, it's Sundays. Like, it's one way for me to get ahead. And so when I was asked this recently, like, okay, so why do you do this on Sundays and only Sundays? For me, it's in my day, right? Everyone else starts their week on Monday. I start my week on Sunday. So I'm able to get ahead of the curve, and I can just like really start knocking down things that I don't worry about. So for me, I always thought of Friday as like, it's like a day off, right? Most people work up until 12 anyways. They kind of BS through the rest of their day. Then they go out and about. You know what I'm saying? Like it
was crazy. I was just working on this Friday, and I was working till 4, and some colleague came into the office that day, and they were like, I was like, how long? They're like, how long are you here today? And like, oh, I'm gonna be here till about 4 or 5. And they looked at me like bewildered. They were just like,
what is
on
wrong
a
with
Friday?
you?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
And
everyone else left at 12.
Well, I was like, well, we work with students. Sometimes we gotta adjust around with them. And it was so funny because I was just like, bro, are we in the right business? Are we in the same business? Like,
obviously you're not, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
He showed up and was like, oh man, it's nah, man. This is a happy hour. Fridays. It's like 1 p.m. What are we doing?
And the craziest part was the time he came in and the time he left. And I was just sitting there, like, as he was walking in. I was like, oh, okay, he's on campus today. And then I see him leaving. I'm like, bro,
it was 1:30.
I had like one meeting, and you're like,
man,
you're already gone. But yeah, all to say, yeah, that just referenced for me that whole Friday and people BSing through the other half of it.
It's kind of like leans back to that one conversation we had, movement versus productivity, right? And it's like when you're moving in your purpose, being productive like that isn't a problem, right? When you're just moving to move, when you're just kind of going through the motions.
Well, that almost feels like a claim to call, almost hold myself accountable. It's like, was I should I have been there or should I have been more intentional with my time? And I granted, I'm not going to dive too deep in this because the reality is like I was being intentional because we want to be on campus to serve the students as long as possible. But yeah, I agree with you in terms of intention and moving with your why and the work that you do to serve those. I wanted to talk a little bit about this association he made with what was it? It was an identity and environment. And so he makes this claim that, like, and James Clear, again, for reference in the book, if you fell off, okay? we locked in here. We need you all keep up, okay? We're talking about James Clear's Atomic Habits book, okay?
Solid.
And how we ourselves can develop the best habits for our lifestyles to achieve the goals that we want to achieve in this lifetime. So he makes this association about your environment and how you need to not view things in your environment as objects that you interact with, but rather relationships with these things. So
give me an example.
So yeah. So the example he references is that you develop a I think I misspoke a little bit. Relationship with your environment as an identity. Okay, so that's the part where I think I missed there. And that the idea was that, for example, I told you about the habit of waking up at 4 a.m. Well, part of it I think helped because I was like, okay, no, I identify as somebody who wakes up at 4 a.m.
I'm an early riser. Yeah,
exactly. Versus I need to wake up early.
Yeah,
you
definitely.
Know what I mean?
And it almost becomes something that that's a part that steps into the identity, almost like somebody who references like, oh, I just have a horrible memory, so every time we have a conversation and I just don't remember something, I always reference back to saying I can fall back on saying like I just don't have a good memory, right? And it's like, because what you identify as is what you will align yourself to be. The same type of person who aligns and says I just happen to have a really bad memory is always the person who will fall back on that no matter how bad, and their actions will always lean toward aligning to that part of their character, right? And even like, okay, we both identify as athletes. Played sports a while ago. We are not currently
ish.
Well, okay, all right. So anybody who's played sports in high school or in college has always identified as an athlete, right? Okay. Because those people, well, normally they do. Because once you are an athlete, you're always an athlete, right? So when you're looking at things, it's through a lens of, oh, I'm an athlete. I identify as that. Everything I do will always be looked at through that lens. almost, right? It's because it's part of your identity.
Personally or externally? Like you are viewing that through that lens, or people see you in that lens?
So I would say that it's kind of a bit of both, but mainly yourself when you see things through that lens.
Okay.
So when you're thinking about someone asking you, hey, do you want to play like a pickup game basketball? Even though basketball like may not be your sport, you identify as an athlete. So you're like, oh, I can compete. I'm good. I'm ready to go. I will answer the call and I will compete at the highest level I personally can. Okay. Right? At least that's what I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of someone who identifies as an athlete. But one of the quotes that James Clear had in the book is your behaviors are a reflection of your identity, right? Just like your life is a reflection of your habits, your behaviors being a reflection of your identity. It makes so much sense because people who identify as either athletes or scholars or early risers, they do things that are aligned with that character, right? And yeah, it's, I mean,
they begin to revolve their day around
their whole
things
life,
they
man.
Identify with. Like even say, like I may identify as early riser, but you best believe I'm in bed by like 10 a.m.
10 p.m. Yeah,
or 10 p.m. Yeah, 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really do like that association he makes of embodying the identity of the habit that you want to take full ownership over, really. And there's like I guess it's like a critical claim or to extreme ownership over what these habits you want to take on. And it's an internal accountability almost. There's not much external from what he sounds like, what he's proposing, and what I feel like the habits that have worked for me. It's not an external conversation. It's not a relationship to, oh, I'm gonna wake up and beat my competition because da da da. It's more of like, no, man, I'm in competition with myself. Like, what you mean? Like, this is what I enjoy. This is the habits that I want to develop because I find value that's going to foster something inside me rather than something that I can foster off of someone's external judgment. Yeah. So, I really like this point of creating an identity relationship with your environment rather than associating them as objects or tasks. He also talked about this this idea between quantity and quality of habits, and so
talk to him.
Yeah. Well, you always hear the saying, right? Because it's like the saying of quality over quantity, right? And he more or less articulates that not really. You know what you should really look at is why don't we start with quantity, and then he makes a linear pattern of, let's start with quantity, move to refinement, and then ultimate quality because you've practiced and habitually improved on habitually improved on the things you were trying to improve on. And so I really like that change in language or narrative there, because for me, even with this podcast, it's like, all right, well, I think the best thing I could have done was drop episode 1. I look at episode 1, I'm like, God, what was I thinking? Like,
it wasn't that bad.
No.
It could have been
do you
worse.
see how this look right now? This
okay. Obviously, when you're comparing,
this almost look like we in a podcast suit. Almost.
It does look like room. Nobody is good. Nobody would know. Nobody would know. What's that meme? Nobody. That sound from TikTok. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I got you. But that's what I'm saying is, like, I think the quantity part was where for me was taking the first leap and then ultimately seeing how much I can put out there. But as I'm putting it out there, understand like each post, each clip, each episode is an improvement on the last in some minute 1% way. You know, what's the saying? Who said that? 1% better every day.
Yeah, 1% better every day. So in the book, he was speaking about James Clear gave us a really, really clear example of how the London cycling team and how they were so bad, That's right? That there were cycling companies that were so horrible. The cycling companies that they obviously created gear for cyclists, they would not sponsor them because they thought that if other teams saw them, that they would associate their name with losing, that because of how bad their team was. And so the London team brought in a coach who was focused on basically making sure the team was 1% better every day. And so he was really focused on the growth factor, and every single day us getting 1% better, to the point to where they were finding little things that other people just weren't identifying. They painted the inside of the walls of the vans where the bikes were when they were traveling white so that they could identify dust particles so they couldn't affect the bike. They they kind of rounded out the tires with alcohol to make sure that they had more grip on the road. They like researched and basically worked with doctors who were really, really focused on sleep so that the athletes could have the best pillows, best sheets, best beds, so they could sleep better and be 1% better the next day. All the things they did were 1% better every single day. And then they went on to win the Tour de la France, like 3-4 years in a row, maybe probably more than that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but they just started dominating. And it was within like a 4 to 5 year time span that they really just started to step up their game. And people were wondering like what happened, because when you go over 100 years of just losing horribly to all of your competition, and then before you know it, you're dominating everybody. And his thing was 1% better every day. And
okay, so the curiosity in me wants to ask, okay, is at what point is that 1% better from painting the vans white that hold the bikes, and just to see dust particles? At what point is that just more of a motivational mindset placebo effect to the team? Or is it? Are you truly getting better 1% each day?
So I would argue with you on this one.
Inquiry. This is like question.
He's playing devil's advocate in his truest form, and I'm happy because we can go into this. So one thing we haven't touched on that James Clear brought up was that it's kind of like the factor that made the name of the book, Atomic Habits. Atomic, right? The measurement of something so small. 0 to 1 is always looked at as like, dude, it's insignificant. Yeah. But when you add that up over time, it becomes so significant, right? And it was like it just stacks on each other very, very well. Yeah. And so when I'm thinking about just the little things he did, it seems so insignificant to the naked eye, but when you stack up the little things on top of each other in terms of training, in terms of sleeping, in terms of how you store your bike, everything, it just adds up. There's a good book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and he speaks about, and this isn't to take away from James Clear, but he speaks about how the micro changes, micro decisions you make on a daily basis, just like how the habits you make affect the quality of your life, those micro decisions will affect you years down the road. You'll never know. You would never know. And it's just about you taking the time to say, you know what, like you woke up in the morning, got your coffee, have a bowl of fruit, and you're going through emails. I have like 15 minutes extra. Let me make my bed. Making that one decision to make your bed that one morning will affect you 5 years down the road, and you would never know. You never realize it because it's just that one step, right? 0 to 1. It's something that we perceive as so insignificant and not important that, it's not that big a deal when in fact it matters so much, right? It's
like the value of it when no one's watching.
Bro, it really does, right? It's just like what you said earlier. Earlier you gave the example of like you waking up for ET's podcast, and you were doing it for the fact that it was one ET, but also like it just wasn't tied to your why and your purpose. Yeah. But then when you tied it to your why and your purpose, that small and significant change, that 0 to 1 change, all of a sudden it just became nothing, right? It became so, I don't know, subconscious, right? And that actually ties really well into one of the things that James Clear brought up in the book, and he said habit formation is incredibly important because the conscious mind is the bottleneck of the brain, and you can only really focus on one problem at a time, right? So by creating those creating those habits, putting those in place, everything else becomes like your identity is part of your subconscious, right? And your subconscious is really what's going to lead you there, right? Those habits are like, and this is something like, oh man, it bums me out that we kind of lost that last episode because we touched on it so well, but and I think we can still capture it here. But when you identify as a certain way, let's say if you identify as an early riser, right? And all of your habits lean toward that, your subconscious is going to start processing information as a early riser, right? So if you find something, let's say you come across a pillow that Costco is advertising as giving you better better form of sleep. As an early riser, that's going to be something that's valuable to you, because then you can wake up better rested, more focused, more energized, things like that. And you start to subtly pick up on other things that people just wouldn't really view as significant.
So is it the autonomous nature of it that's valuable, or is it the association value that you place on?
I would say it leans more toward the autonomous, right?
So the idea that you just created this habit so much so that you move through life as if you don't give it a second thought.
Yeah, I mean, a good example. I'll use myself as an example, right? So one thing that I always value, I'm a cliche type of person, right? I'm the guy who, like, you ask a question and I'll give you a quote, because that's, for me, in my mind, the first thing I'll think of. And that's very on point for my personality, and I'm okay with that. So one of the things for me is, within the notes section of my phone, I have a area called quotes. And I always write down the quotes that I hear that fascinate me, that when I read, adds clarity, blows my mind. It really does kind of, it makes an idea very concise, straight to the point, but also very powerful. And so when reading the book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, my mind subconsciously looks for these quotes, and when I read them that really hit home for me, it immediately registers. Write that one down, that one right there, that one right there. And even when I'm talking to people and they say something that really captures my attention, that grabs me, I'm like, yo, so my subconscious will pick up on that, only because I've already put it in my mind that that's something I love, that's something that's a part of my character. Quotes really, really sum up a lot for me. And so now I subconsciously pick up on it. It, like you said, it's autonomous for me now.
Okay.
That's the way I think about it. One of the things you touched on, that was really, really important is, and it kind of like spun out into this part of the conversation, was that quality or quantity with refinement, and then more into quality, right? And for me, the thing that really hits home with that is, there's a really good book by Jake Wakeskin called The Art of Learning, right? And in that book, he speaks on how some of the best athletes in the world, just the best people in their craft in the world, kind of take kind of making bigger circles smaller. There's a chapter on it. If anyone gets a chance to read it, dive into that book. You learn a lot. And what he speaks about is how an athlete, for instance, Muhammad Ali, right? If anyone saw like a simple, like a left hook, right? Or fairly recently, Kamaru Usman, right? A jab from him, right? To the naked eye, to the untrained eye, it just looks like a regular jab, regular hook from Muhammad Ali. Yeah. But to someone like them, they've been doing it for so long. They refined their steps down. So something that looks like a subtle gesture, just a quick movement, there's so much more power in it. Okay. Right? They've taken those things, like you said, the quantity of those movements, and they've refined it down so it's very quality, right? So instead, with let's say Usman, right? Good example. When he jabs, to anybody else, it just looks like a regular jab. But when you saw the effect it had on Masvidal,
we gave him a cross.
No, I know that, but what I'm saying,
right.
even in like what was it, their first round, right? Some of his jabs really sent Masvidal back, and it was like, whoa, like his jabs are just that powerful, but they're only that powerful. And I'm not saying they only, but they're really powerful because he's refined the steps down, so that a regular jab has a lot more power.
Yeah, I mean, I was even listening to a few podcasts that after the fight that Usman went on, and he was just talking about how people knew him as a wrestler. They thought it was going to take Masvidal to the ground. Masvidal was talking all that spit about how, bro, did you see him the first fight we had? He punches soft, like he can't punch.
He doesn't have any power.
And lo and behold, he gets knocked with a straight right, and I'm just like, all right. But all to say is that in these interviews, he's talking about how, bro, I'm just getting started. And he's defended the belt I don't know how many times, but he's just like, I'm getting better each day. I'm refining parts of my game that I haven't refined as much as my other parts of my game, right? So he was a wrestler or a ground game traditionally kind of guy, and he's moving into this striking field with, you know, the journeyman striker Masvidal, bro, Mr. Kimbo Slice, and him in the backyards doing crazy stuff in Florida, right? But they throw hands, right? And to throw hands and knock a dude out with being your background not being that, it's impressive, man. So when you speak on the quantity refinement part specifically, I think almost I think there's a stronger association between those two, until you get quality. I feel like it's like a step up. Like quality and refinement, I feel like you might go back and forth. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, I'm pumping out, like whatever this work is, right? So whether it be working out, like different goals you may have, and then you might just to define and realize, okay, I need to refine this a little bit, and then you're like, oh, after I refined it, it's not really what I'm doing. Okay, it's not really what I want it to be. Let me go back to quantity of something that either is adjacent or
that was working for me previously.
Yeah. And then I feel like the quality and refinement point he makes in this book is a lot more back and forth until you get to that quality.
I think when figuring out like what habit suits you, it's being able to identify something that's really, really important is also being able to identify like why you're doing something. Right. And one of the things he touched on that really went home for me was when he said every cue is linked to a desire to change an internal state. Right. So people don't, like, for instance, like everyone has those things that they do because they want something else. And I'll give you a good example. When everyone gets done with work, it's not that people are lazy, they want to go home and just not do anything. It's the fact that they're so exhausted from work, they want to be entertained. Or they want to take their mind off of it, right? That's right. So when you're thinking about it, like people don't want to turn on the television, they want to be entertained. Yeah. People don't want to play video games all day, they just want to be entertained. Yep. Right? And there's nothing wrong with doing those if that's truly what you want to do. Yeah. But you have to be able to sink it at its base level and understand what you really want, right? And I think that is really, really going to matter. It's going to factor in when we're talking about what people want and where they want to go.
Yeah, this is actually something I want to talk about is like, how do we break out of those bad habits? How do we break out of habits that aren't the ones that we should be moving or capitalizing on?
Whether generational ones or whether they're actually ones that are, that we can touch on that in a second.
Yes, sir. Well, let's start with the first one. The first one being, he references this example of Thursday evenings, for those TV watchers out there, it's like prime time TV, right? The biggest slots you watching Survivor, Bachelor, all these ones, because the news networks apparently recognize that they want the single mother or the housewife or the single female to be, it's Thursday night, I'm gonna grab a glass of wine. Yep. Granted, they're painting this picture in the book. Do we believe that? I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah. We'll see. But they painted this picture because they say that it's habitual for these people that want to watch stuff. They just want to relax, and that this is not so much even a marketing effort. It's like the audience is already wanting the service that you want to provide, and so it becomes a self-fulfilled prophecy almost in a way for these viewers to habitually sit down, watch, and enjoy their glass of wine and their TV of drama that. That is their relaxation. It becomes a habit. And how do you break that? How do you get out of those certain things that you do that you're like, oh my goodness, I need to get off this game now, or oh my goodness, I need to get off this TV streaming, binge watching Netflix, what have you, right? And I don't know, what are some ways that you break bad habits for yourself?
That's a really good question, man. I don't know if I have the right answer for that one, to be honest with you. But for me, it's always like breaking it down to the base level. Is this serving me or not? Right? Yeah. If I know it's not serving me, okay, why doesn't it serve me? Or what would serve me? Yeah. Then identifying, okay, so if this isn't what I should be doing to get me to my goals or to get me from where I want to be. I mean, let's just say on a base level, I just want to be healthier. Yeah. Right? If me, let's say, eating out twice or 3 times a week doesn't really serve me, then what would serve me better? Would me meal prepping every week serve me a little bit better? Or would me kind of making it so I could earn that with like an extra workout or two within the week? Like, what would serve me better? And then align it so I can still enjoy the things I want, right? Like if if I do want to still eat out those 2-3 times a week, does that mean I just have to work out a little bit more? Does that mean I get an extra, like, wake up in the morning early or earlier, or stay a little bit longer at the gym?
It's a balancing
exactly.
act
Thank
of
you.
like,
great. Thank you. Balance.
It's a balancing act of, what are you gonna sacrifice for the goal or the outcome that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dive into this generational stuff real quick on habits that sometimes family, culture, friends tend to make, like, character traits or like genetic traits, rather, that, like, for example, like, in my family, there's this tendency to think of, like, oh, all the family on this side is wild and ADHD prone, but nobody's ever diagnosed for it, and like, and I love them for it. I think it's a great, like, campfire story to talk with the family about, like, oh, okay, Uncle so and so's nuts, all right. But, like, how do we make sure when we identify these genetic traits they want to make, which are really habitual traits that they just pass on to one another, breaking that chain, because that needs to break, needs to stop.
It definitely, I think it can be kind of detrimental to, let's say, your kids, or whoever you end up whoever you influence, that that's within your family. Like, there's this really good quote I lean on when I'm thinking about things like this: whatever you don't change, your children will inherit, right? Ooh. So if you are the type of person who is never on time, if you're the type of person who just, like, you're always making excuses for why you aren't there when you should be, or in a certain place or whatever, then your kids are most likely going to end up doing the same thing, because they're going to see their parents doing it, right? And it could just be one of those things where it's like, oh, well, I'm just always late, or our family's never on time, all right? And it could be one of those, but it's one of those things. It's like, it's just a learned behavior, right? This really isn't. It's not like this isn't true. This isn't accurate, because if I told you every time you show up on time, you get $10,000, right? People are going to make sure they're going to do what they need to make sure they're on time, right? It's really about their motivation, how important something is, and those factors that are going to lead to them really showing up when they need to be there.
Dude, I love that trait, that example that you use, because that habit, that generational habit, it was something that my family, my mom, no, she's good at, bro. I mean, we always joke around island time and whatnot, but that's bad, bro. It'd be bad. I had an uncle one time who was like, hey, I'm going to come over to barbecue this weekend. I'll be there by noon. Rolls in with a truck and a barbecue on his back of his pickup, 8 p.m. at night. Like, are you serious, dog?
Right.
But here's what I enjoy. But by contrast, this is something, a habit that generationally I'm thankful for, that I feel like I picked up from my mom's, was she always on time. Like, she is on the dot, and something that I know, even whether it be you or when people we hang out with, when I'm ready to go,
oh, bro,
I'm ready to go, and like, and nobody can tell me, like, I will like, get on you to the point where you get annoyed of me, and you're just like, well, let's go. Like, what are you waiting for? You're annoyed. I get that, but we have things to do. I want to be, and I guess all to say too is that, or also to say, I was that kid that probably show up at the party that says, like, oh, party's at 9. Like, I'll be there at 9.
Showing up. Oh, okay. I was about to say, I'm the guy who shows up at 10:30, 11.
No, I'll be there at 9.
Because I would show up at 9 and no one else is there. I'm like, all right, well, I know not to be here on Jake is like, yo, I'm coming.
Night for me, man. Y'all killing the night. What are you doing? How you going to go have a party at the pregame and not go to the actual party?
Oh, man.
Be late. I'm going to enjoy my full night in my same spot with the best seat, whatever it may be, the entire night.
Pulling up with my kava, ready to go.
Come on, man.
Oh, don't play that game.
I'll stay once we go out to a bar or club. I'll stay at the same spot the entire night and just feel cozy. That's the biggest goal. I cannot stand not feeling comfortable in clubs, dude.
Oh, man, no.
But, like,
back to how these generational no, okay, just to speak on that really quickly, that's the same reason why going to festivals from now on it's the same reason why now I only want to get like VIP tickets. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're in VIP. It's just the fact that you get a different quality of show. So if I want to, I can go into the pit. Like I can go into the crowd and have a really good time, right? But it's, yeah, I just enjoy my space enough to where
I get claustrophobic.
Really?
I don't know, but I'll be at that. I'll be at that at 9 p.m.
Yo, I mean, the habit of showing up on time, bro, it makes sense, man. I mean, just the habit of being there when the party starts. Yeah, that's little things, man.
So I think we're getting to the point of the conclusion of our episode, and so we hope you found some value with this. You know, maybe not the last couple minutes here, but. You know, when we talk about forming habits and really centering yourself on why a habit formation is important, why you should give it some weight, identify the habits that you currently have, the positive and the negative ones, the ones that have been passed down to you, the ones that you are trying out, and understanding your why and rationale for why you're trying to develop these habits, and learning and centering yourself in these formation of these habits, so that it's not an external rationale that, at least in my experience, hasn't really worked out for me. It might work out for some of you.
Yeah.
But that's episode 12. Okay. So we had to do a little revamp. We appreciate you riding with us after this one. This one's gonna drop Tuesday. We're gonna have another episode drop Wednesday, and then we're gonna be back in Clubhouse on Thursday. So we got a cool guest for you on Wednesday. We'll be talking. If our guest can join us on Thursday, maybe see if he can be there. If not, we'll be talking about habits and a little bit of his story on Thursday as well. And I'm really excited. If you can't tell, we're rocking and trying a little bit of flair. I'm telling you right now, I'm not the fashion guy by any means at all. I wear plain shirts and plain hats.
If you couldn't tell by what he's wearing.
And plain jeans.
Yeah.
But if you can tell, there's a nice little logo on top of my head. It's RH.
Oh my God!
Okay.
For anybody who doesn't see, it's a Humble Hustle project hat he has on. It's very exclusive to the brand.
It's a sample.
It's one of the many pieces that will be dropped here soon.
Will be dropped here soon. I'm excited because it's going to be available to anybody at any time. It's not going to be some exclusive drops. Just you're going to be able to have access to it. And so, other than that, keep it moving. We appreciate y'all. Thanks for riding with us. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Sounds good. Tune in.
Deuces.